All right, so today we're going to help get you ready to totally crush it at your Rail Logistics Coordinator interview. And lucky for you, we have some really awesome resources to help us out. We've got the career guide and the interview guide. Both are from RoleCatcher, and both are made specifically for rail logistics coordinators. These guides have so much great info about the role itself and the industry, but most importantly, we'll be focusing on how to answer those tricky interview questions.
Yeah, and you know what I think is really cool about these guides? They don't just give generic advice. They actually have like real-world examples. And they even have some pretty practical strategies that you can use to stand out, from all the other candidates. And the best part is we're going to bring in insights from RoleCatcher's AI, which can actually look at job descriptions. And then it can give you feedback on your interview answers. I mean, it's like having a secret weapon.
Okay, so before we jump into the questions, let's take a step back and talk about what a rail logistics coordinator actually does.
So basically, think about the whole network of rail lines and shipments and deliveries all across the country. A rail logistics coordinator is like the conductor. They make sure everything's running smoothly and on time. They manage all shipments and they coordinate the resources. And they make sure all the deliveries happen when they're supposed to. Oh, and they're always looking for ways to make the whole process better. So it's a really dynamic role. You definitely need to be organized and good at problem solving. And you got to know the industry.
Well, speaking of knowing the industry, the RoleCatcher Career Guide actually gives us some really interesting insights into the exact skills and qualifications that companies are looking for. For example, it says that it's really important to be detail-oriented and have strong communication skills. And you also have to be able to work well under pressure.
That's so true. And it also mentions that it's important to stay up to date with all the new industry trends and technology. The transportation sector is constantly changing. Rail logistics coordinators need to be able to adapt and learn new things.
So listener, if you're looking for a stable and rewarding career in a growing field, becoming a rail logistics coordinator could be the perfect fit. But first, you got to nail that interview. And that's where our deep dive comes in. Are you ready to tackle these questions?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Okay, so question number 1 from the RoleCatcher Interview Guide. Can you tell us about your experience in coordinating rail logistics? So, what do you think the interviewer is really trying to figure out here?
I think they're trying to see how much experience you actually have. Have you actually coordinated rail logistics before, even if it was in a smaller role? Or are you just familiar with the concept? So this is your time to really highlight any direct experience you have, even if it was from an internship or a project or even volunteer work.
Yeah, and I like how the career guide actually gives examples of how the responsibilities change as you move up in your career. So even if you're just starting out, you can still talk about relevant skills like managing shipments, or allocating resources, or even just contributing to supply chain strategies.
Exactly. And don't forget to use numbers to your advantage. Did you successfully coordinate a certain number of shipments? Did you come up with a new process that made things more efficient? Did you work on a project that saved the company money? Numbers really make an impact in an interview.
Okay, so listener, now imagine they follow up with this question. Can you give us a specific example of a time you had to make a quick decision to avoid a shipping delay? How would you approach that?
This is where the STAR method comes in really handy. They mention it in the RoleCatcher guides. It stands for situation, task, action, and result. So you want to describe what was going on, and then what your specific role was, then what action you took, and what the outcome was.
Okay, so for example, you could talk about a time when a shipment was going to miss a deadline because of something unexpected, like a storm or a mechanical problem. Then you'd explain how you assessed the situation and how you looked at other routes or ways to transport it and how you communicated with everyone involved. And then, of course, how you made sure the shipment arrives on time.
Exactly. And even if it didn't work out perfectly in the end, you can still show that you can solve problems and adapt, and that you're a good communicator.
Okay, let's move on to question number 2. How do you ensure that all parties involved in the rail logistics process are informed and updated on any changes or delays? So what's the most important thing to get across here?
This question's all about communication. You need to be clear and concise, and you need to communicate proactively. Rail logistics involves a lot of different people. You've got your clients and carriers and suppliers and internal teams. It's crucial to keep everyone in the loop for things to run smoothly.
Yeah, and the career guide really stresses this point. It says that rail logistics coordinators need strong interpersonal and communication skills. It also says that it's important to be able to adapt your communication style, since you'll be talking to a lot of different types of people.
Absolutely. You could talk about how you use different ways to communicate, like Email, phone calls, online platforms, even face-to-face meetings depending on what's going on.
And this is where RoleCatcher's AI can really help you out. Let's say you upload the job description, and the AI sees keywords like collaboration, or cross-functional communication, or stakeholder management. You can then work those keywords into your answer to show that you understand what they need.
That's a great point. And don't forget to be proactive. Don't wait for people to ask you for updates. Try to anticipate any problems and communicate them early. Even if it's just to say, hey, I'm watching this closely and I'll let you know what happened.
Now, listener, what if they throw you a curveball and ask, how would you handle communicating a major delay to a client who's known to be very demanding?
Oh, that's a tough one. But it's a great chance to show that you can handle difficult situations professionally.
Yeah. So you could talk about the importance of empathy and active listening. And clear communication, of course. Acknowledge that the client is frustrated. Explain what's going on honestly and clearly. And if you can, offer some other solutions.
And it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Stay calm and respectful, even if the person's being difficult.
Okay, let's go to question number 3. How do you prioritize tasks when dealing with multiple rail logistics projects simultaneously?
What are they really trying to find out with this question?
They want to know how you manage your time and organize your work, and how you stay focused when things are hectic. Rail logistics moves fast, and you need to be able to handle a lot of things at once.
Yeah, the career guide lists organizational skills and time management as essential for this role. It also mentions that rail logistics coordinators often work on their own, so you need to be able to manage yourself and your time.
You got it. You could talk about how you use tools like project management software, to-do lists, or even just a whiteboard to stay organized. You could also mention strategies like breaking down big projects into smaller chunks, or using a system to rank your tasks based on how important and urgent they are. And make sure to highlight that you can adapt when priorities change, because things can change really quickly in rail logistics.
Now imagine the interviewer asks, tell me about a time you had to reprioritize your tasks because of an unexpected issue. What was your approach?
This is where you can use a specific example. And remember the STAR method.
Yep. Describe the situation, what the issue was, the steps you took to reprioritize, and the outcome. And if you can quantify the impact, like by reprioritizing my tasks, I was able to prevent a 2-day delay and save the company $5,000. Even better.
Okay, question number 4. Can you describe a time when you had to resolve a conflict or disagreement with a stakeholder involved in a rail logistics project? What are they looking for here?
I think they want to see how you deal with people and how you handle difficult situations professionally. Remember, rail logistics coordinators work with a lot of different people, and there are bound to be disagreements. The interviewer wants to know that you can work through those without ruining relationships.
And the career guide really emphasizes building and maintaining good relationships with clients, carriers, and everyone else involved.
For sure, you could talk about active listening and empathy, and trying to see things from the other person's perspective. Explain how you try to find solutions that work for everyone.
And don't just talk, generally give a specific example using the STAR method.
Right. Describe the situation, the conflict, what you did, and what happened in the end. Even if it wasn't perfect, you can still show that you're good at negotiating and communicating.
So listener, let's say they follow up with, tell me about a time you had to deal with a conflict where you and a stakeholder had very different ideas about how to proceed. How did you handle that?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Because it really gets to the heart of conflict resolution. You could talk about staying calm and professional, even when you disagree with someone.
Yeah, and you could also mention how you try to find common ground by focusing on goals that you both share. Maybe you were able to find some areas where you agreed, and then build from there to find a solution that worked for both of you.
And remember, clear communication is key. Make sure you're expressing yourself clearly and respectfully, and that you're really listening to understand the other person's point of view.
Okay, let's move on to question number 5. Okay, so we're back and ready to tackle some more interview questions. These are all specific to rail logistics coordinators. And remember, we're using RoleCatcher's amazing resources. Their career guide and interview guide are full of helpful info.
Don't forget about RoleCatcher's AI. We'll show you how it can give you a real advantage by helping you tailor your answers and practice your delivery. It's basically like having a personal coach.
Right. So let's pick up where we left off. Question number 5 from RoleCatcher's interview guide is, how do you stay up to date with industry regulations and best practices in rail logistics? This seems pretty straightforward, but what do you think?
Yeah, there's actually a lot to think about here. It's not enough to just know the basics. The rail industry is always changing. With new technologies, regulations, and best practices popping up all the time, the interviewer wants to know that you're staying informed and that you're keeping up with all those changes.
Well, the RoleCatcher Career Guide has a whole section on this. It's called Industry Trends and Challenges. It talks about things like autonomous trains
Yeah.
and sustainability and how global supply chains are getting more complex.
Exactly. So when you answer this question, you could mention some specific publications or websites that you follow, or conferences you attend, or professional organizations you belong to. Maybe you've even taken some courses or gotten certifications to learn more about a certain area.
Oh, and this is a great example of how RoleCatcher's AI can help you personalize your answer. So let's say the job description talks a lot about safety compliance or environmental sustainability. The AI can actually analyze that and then suggest specific industry regulations or best practices that you can mention to show them that you know your stuff.
Right. It's all about tailoring your answer to that specific job. So listener, think about this. What if they ask you, what's a recent industry trend that you've been following, and how do you see it impacting the role of a rail logistics coordinator?
Ooh, that's a good one. They're really testing you to see if you get the bigger picture.
Exactly. This is your chance to show them that you're not just keeping up with the industry, but you're thinking critically about its future. You could talk about something like high-speed rail networks, or how artificial intelligence is being used in logistics.
And don't forget to connect it back to what a rail logistics coordinator actually does. How would these trends change things like scheduling or routing or allocating resources or even safety protocols?
Okay, let's move on to question number 6. How do you ensure that all rail logistics operations are compliant with safety regulations? Safety is a huge deal in this industry.
Absolutely. The RoleCatcher Career Guide is really clear about that. It says safety should be a top priority for rail logistics coordinators. It even mentions some of the potential hazards, like hazardous materials and heavy equipment, and the fact that rail yard operations can be really complex.
So this is where your attention to detail comes in. And your commitment to following all the procedures. You could talk about how you learn about all the safety regulations and how you do regular safety inspections and how you train your team on safety procedures.
And it's also really important to keep good records of inspections, maintenance, and training. That can help prove that you're following the rules and prevent accidents.
Now, let's say they ask you, describe a time you identified a potential safety hazard and the steps you took to address it. How would you answer that?
This is a good chance to show them that you're proactive about safety. You could talk about a time when you noticed a piece of equipment wasn't working right, or maybe someone wasn't following safety procedures, or even a potential environmental hazard.
Yeah, but it's not enough to just identify the problem. You need to tell them exactly what you did to fix it. Did you report it right away? Did you put some temporary safety measures in place? Did you work with your team to find a long-term solution?
All right, let's move on to question number 7. Can you describe a time when you had to make a difficult decision related to real logistics operations? This one's all about showing them that you have good judgment and that you can solve problems.
Right. Rail logistics coordinators are always running into situations where there's no easy answer. The interviewer wants to see that you can handle the pressure and make good decisions when you have to juggle competing priorities.
The career guide actually gives some examples of these tough decisions, like figuring out which shipments to prioritize when you're short on space, or dealing with unexpected delays and disruptions, or managing conflicts between clients and carriers.
So remember the STAR method. Pick an example from your own experience and tell the story. Describe the situation, the problem, the steps you took to decide what to do, and then what the outcome was.
Okay, listener, now they might follow up with something like this. Imagine a major client wants you to expedite their shipment, but it would mean delaying other shipments and costing the company a lot of money. How would you handle that?
Ooh, that's a tough one. This is all about balancing priorities and finding a solution that's best for everyone involved.
So you could start by figuring out all the details. What kind of shipment is it? What are your agreements with the other clients? How much would it cost? And what would the logistics be for each option?
Then you have to think about what could happen with each decision. How would it affect your relationships with your clients? What would the financial impact be? Are there any risks involved with each option?
And then finally, you have to make a decision and explain why you made it. Explain how your decision aligns with the company's values and how you're going to minimize any negative impacts.
Okay, let's tackle question number 8.
Okay, so question number 8. How do you ensure that rail logistics operations are cost-effective while still maintaining a high level of service quality? Huh. This one seems like a balancing act.
Oh, it definitely is. And it's a question that really gets to the heart of what a rail logistics coordinator does. They're always trying to find that sweet spot
Right.
where they can keep costs down without sacrificing quality.
The career guide mentions that. Rail logistics coordinators need to be good negotiators, and they need to know how to build strong relationships with carriers to get the best rates.
Right. So you could talk about how you research different carriers and how you compare their rates and services and how you negotiate contracts that benefit both sides.
You could also mention strategies like consolidating shipments, or optimizing routes, or using technology to improve efficiency.
Oh, and don't forget about the importance of communication. You need to make sure that everyone's on the same page and that everyone understands the importance of staying within budget while still providing great service.
So, listener, what if they ask you, can you give an example of a time when you had to find a way to reduce costs without compromising service quality?
This is the chance to show them how you think creatively and how you come up with solutions that work for everyone.
You could talk about a time when you negotiated a better rate with a carrier, or maybe you found a way to streamline a process, or maybe you implemented a new technology that saved time and money.
Just make sure you can quantify your results. How much money did you save? How much did you improve efficiency?
Okay, question number 9. Can you describe a time when you had to negotiate with a rail carrier to achieve a better outcome for your organization? Sounds like they want to see your negotiation skills in action.
Yeah, this is a really common situation for rail logistics coordinators. They're always negotiating with carriers to get the best rates, the best service, the best terms.
The career guide says that. It's important to be assertive, but also respectful when you're negotiating. And you always want to try to find a win-win situation.
Right. So when you're answering this question, use the STAR method. Describe the situation, what you were trying to achieve, the steps you took to negotiate, and the outcome.
Now they might follow up with, what's your approach to preparing for a negotiation with a rail carrier?
This is your chance to show them how thorough and organized you are. You could talk about how you research the carrier's rates and services and their history, and how you identify your own needs and priorities, and how you develop a strategy.
You could also mention that you always try to build a good rapport with the carrier. That can really help when you're trying to find common ground.
Okay, so the last question. Question number 10. Can you describe your experience in managing rail logistics projects from start to finish?
This one's pretty broad. What do you think they're looking for?
I think they're trying to get a sense of your overall experience and your understanding of the entire rail logistics process.
The career guide emphasizes that rail logistics coordinators need to be able to see the big picture and manage all the different moving parts of a project.
Right. So when you're answering this question, choose a project that really showcases your skills and walk them through it step by step. Talk about how you planned the project, how you coordinated the different teams and resources, how you dealt with any challenges that came up, and how you made sure the project was completed on time and within budget.
And don't forget to mention the outcome of the project. Was it successful? Did you meet or exceed expectations?
Now they might ask you, what was the biggest challenge you faced while managing that project, and how did you overcome it?
This is another chance to show them your problem-solving skills. Choose a challenge that really tested you and explain how you approached it. What steps did you take? Who did you involve? What was the result?
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, but there's one more thing I want to talk about, and that's RoleCatcher's AI.
Yes, we've been mentioning it throughout our deep dive, but now it's time to really dive into how it can help you prepare for your interview.
So you've spent all this time crafting your answers to these tough interview questions, but how do you know if they're really good? That's where RoleCatcher's AI comes in.
So it's not just general feedback. It actually analyzes my answers and tells me how to make them better.
Exactly. You upload your practice answers, and RoleCatcher's AI gives you personalized feedback based on the specific job you're applying for. It looks at the language you're using, the skills you're highlighting, even your tone of voice, to make sure your answers are what the employer's looking for.
Wow. So it's like having an expert interviewer giving me feedback.
Pretty much. It can tell you if you're emphasizing the right skills, if your examples are relevant and interesting, and even if you're coming across as confident but not arrogant.
What about those behavioral questions, where you have to tell a story about something that happened to you in the past? Can RoleCatcher help me with those too?
Of course. Remember the STAR method we talked about? RoleCatcher's AI can help you structure your answers using that framework, so you're presenting your experiences in a clear, concise, and memorable way. It even has something called the STAR Method Builder to guide you through it.
That's amazing. Okay, but what about how I deliver my answers? Things like body language and eye contact and tone of voice.
RoleCatcher can help you with that too. It has a video practice feature, so you can record yourself answering interview questions. And then the AI analyzes your video and gives you feedback on your delivery.
So it's like a virtual mock interview with an AI coach.
Exactly. And the more you use RoleCatcher, the more it learns about you, so it can give you even better feedback over time.
That's really cool.
It is. And to think it all started with a deep dive into RoleCatcher's career guide and interview guide for rail logistics coordinators.
We've come a long way. We've talked about what the role is. We've gone over some really tough interview questions, and we've even learned about how AI can help us prepare for our interviews.
It's been a great journey. But remember, this is just the beginning. It's up to you to take what we've learned today and put it into practice. Keep learning, keep growing, and never stop trying to be the best you can be.
And if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, remember that RoleCatcher is there to help you. Their AI can help you tailor your resume, practice your interview answers, and even improve how you present yourself so you can stand out from the competition.
So to our listener who's on the path to becoming a rail logistics coordinator, remember, you have the knowledge, you have the skills, and now with RoleCatcher, you have the AI advantage. Go out there and ace that interview.
And if you're ever looking for a deep dive into any other career path or topic, you know where to find us. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep exploring the world around you.